Joining us now here on In the Circle on D1 Softball, powered by 643. She is, of course, one of the Seminole greats at Florida State, had a standout career. She was an all ACC performer just about every year, played at the College World Series like a second home to her, played for the national championship on a couple occasions, of course, played professionally this summer with the Orlando Monarchs, and now is the assistant coach at FGCU. I speak of Devyn Flaherty joining us here for the first time on In the Circle. How you doing?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me.
I tell you, it is hard to keep up with you. You're. I feel like your life is going fast. I mean, I covered your entire playing career, and then next thing I know, I look over and like, wait, your coaching career has started, and it's off to a great start. With going to Mercer and joining Coach Fico, and now coming over to FGCU. So, like, I just want to first start with, what has this been like for you, where you're still playing, coming out of college, still playing now professionally, but then now you're also getting into the college coaching landscape.
Yeah, it's been a lot. I mean, I've been so lucky, so fortunate to be around the people I've been around, not only in my career, but after my career too, and kind of just taking opportunities as they come. I mean, Alex Powers, the GM of the Monarchs, reached out to me right after I finished my career and played for her last summer in Texas. And then I actually had an internship with the Baltimore Orioles in the fall of last year. And I got to experience and meet some really great people there, and then got to work with Lindsay and Mercer in the spring, and that was great. And then kind of got this opportunity here, which was obviously being back in the state and kind of a little bit bigger of a role and being closer to home. So it's been great. It's been a lot, but the summers I had such an amazing time playing with the team this summer, and just the girls you get to meet every summer and where they come from. It's so great. And I think, coming from Florida State, it's all about the relationships and the people you meet. Yes, the softball is, what we all want to do in the game we want to grow. But the way we do that is by making those relationships. And I've just been so lucky to have the opportunity to make those in so many different places. So definitely feels like a whirlwind, but also at the same time, just kind of taking it all in.
Yeah, taking it in and being successful. How did you connect with Coach Fico? Your first job there, going to Mercer, had a great year last year, winning that SoCon Conference Tournament championship, getting to a regional final in Gainesville, and then now you're following her to FGCU, which makes sense. But how did you connect with her?
Yeah, funny story. Coach Lindsay actually, she coached me in the summer league, the first year of the summer league at the FGCL in 2020, I think that was. So right after my, freshman year ended, I played in that summer league. So it was in Sarasota, it worked out great, and her family was there. So she coached me in that summer league, and I wasn't going to go back another year, and she's like, I'm going to go back. I was like, okay, I'll go back. And then she ended up getting the Mercer job, so she couldn't coach me again, but played again in that summer league, and we've stayed in contact. Our families became great friends through that, and she's come to a few regionals in Tallahassee, a few super regionals. So just kind of stayed really close, and then kind of gave me a call right after my career ended at Florida State. And I had already committed to taking this opportunity with the Orioles. And she was like, all right, well, let me know if anything changes. And I called her and I was like, I want to come up there and, be around you guys and just help wherever I can, whatever role that might be. And it kind of ended up working itself out. But yeah, we actually met 5 years ago, 6 years ago now.
Small world.
It is
That's
very small.
that's kind of wild how that would change things. So when you finished your career at FSU in 2024,
Hmm.
was coaching in the plans? Did it just did it just kind of present itself? Like what take me through that mindset, uh,
Yeah.
and how the coaching, when did that start entering your mind?
Coaching wasn't quite in the plans for me. I think coming from a school where not like the coaches are everything, but I just was so lucky with the coaches I had, and how they care about you as a player and a person. And not only that, but just their ability to coach. Like it truly is second to none. And I think, you kind of see that especially after the fact of college and being in the pro world and just kind of hearing all the things about all the colleges and just how great, how lucky I was to be where I was. But I was like, no, I kind of want to branch out. That's something they push, coaches always like be uncomfortable. And I was like, I want to stay in the sport, but I want to be able to kind of keep growing. And so I interned for our baseball team at Florida State actually with our player development and their D ops. And I really loved it. And I was like, professional baseball. And I got this opportunity with the Orioles to be an intern for their player development in Sarasota. And it kind of came to an abrupt stop. There was, some hurricanes going on, all their fall camps and stuff like that. And I was like, maybe coaching is something I'd be interested in for a little while. And that's kind of when I gave Lindsay a call and she was like, absolutely. So it kind of came up through different opportunities, and just the timing of things. But then I think being able to be with Mercer last year and be around the girls and see kind of everything come to fruition and go through the journey we went through, definitely, pushed my hand a little bit on pursuing it a little more.
Amazing how things happen that kind of cause you to go in a certain direction
Mhm.
on this. What did you learn in that first year coaching? Now you're going to be. It's kind of wild. I mean, you've already won a conference title and things. What did you learn? And kind of for those that may not be aware, explain your role within the staff.
Yeah. So I was the volunteer at Mercer. So came in I was there a little bit in the fall, but mostly came in January and kind of helped all the things, helped infield hitting, base running, wherever they needed me. Kaylee Harding was our GA, so we kind of went together. So we kind of obviously come from the same place, and had similar ideas of how we approach the game. So that was my role. And then, sorry, can you repeat the other part of the question?
Just kind of your role and what you learned
Oh yeah,
from
yeah.
in that role in the coaching that year.
I learned a lot. I mean, I think it's difficult being so close to the girls' age sometimes. I think that's probably the hardest thing because I just, it's a hard relationship to balance. It's a fine line, but understanding that I think the biggest thing I learned, that was obviously writing on the wall from my career, but when they know you care about them as a person, the coaching, the tough moments, the hard conversations that might have to come up because it's a game of failure. You have a lot of competitive girls on your team. You have girls that want to win. You have a team that wants to win. So those tough conversations that you might have to have sometimes, I just learned that when they know you truly care about them and you want the best for them and you're always in their hip pocket, those conversations become a little bit easier and they become, more easy to have and easy to approach. And then they get comfortable just with the idea of, okay, they're just pushing me to be a better version of me for this team. So I would say just the process of how to go about that, when to go about that. Everyone's different. Everyone grew up in different places and you have to understand that. But when you really try to cultivate a team environment that is striving for one common goal, but, you know, also striving to be their best self for that common goal, it makes that a little bit easier, but creating that environment is very, very hard. And Coach always talked about that. I mean, she's amazing at doing it, and T Cam and T Will, but I think that learning how to do that and learning how to share that with them, especially being like, I literally just went through it, but now I'm on the other side of it. So where does it kind of meet in the middle? That was the hardest part for me. Not the softball obviously is always going to be hard. It's always challenging. It's a high level of softball, but the relationships and the people, that's what really matters. So making sure you're doing that the right way.
So now, once Coach Fico, got the job at FGCU, what went through your mind, and then just take me through that process of joining her back at FGCU and your role now on this full time on the staff.
Yeah. I always said, Coach Lindsay and just her staffs have reminded me of the staff I got to play for, and that's a big part of it for me. You want to be around people you enjoy, and you want to be around people that kind of see the game, see the process the same way. And I think, the way she's kind of grown through her coaching career, just from when I've met her to see what she's done with her teams has been really great, and just the environment she cultivates. So, I knew after being at Mercer for a little while, like if Lindsay offered me to go somewhere with her, it was definitely going to be, it would be hard to pull me away. That's for sure. Like just knowing the person she is, knowing her family, knowing how she treats her staff, knowing how she treats her players, knowing just how she treats people. And then obviously her softball knowledge and her ability to grow a program. It's not easy. It's really difficult to do what she's done in her career thus far. So obviously putting your stamp of like, okay, that's pretty impressive. And then everything else on top of that. So that was kind of the thought process. And, then she told me and kind of offered it to me and, the small details here and there, but it was a pretty quick transition.
Will you be how much involved? Will you run the office? Will you be involved? What kind of roles will you have now moving forward here at FGCU?
Yeah, I will be the hitting coach and then doing infield and base running. Lindsay and Jordy, our GA, will help with the hitting also. I mean, we're very open-minded and just kind of like to bounce things off of each other. So having a lot of people with different knowledge on the offensive side, I think is really great. You never have enough, um, I think, hands, people who can help. And then doing the infield, and then base running. I mean, base running is like my pride and joy, something I grew up to love through my college career. So that's kind of the role. I mean, I think that's something they do really good as a staff is it's, all hands on deck. We're a staff. It's not this is this person's, this is that person's. We help where we can. So
What was the reaction of your FSU staff when they told them you were getting into coaching? Because I remember I spoke to the staff there, and your name was brought up about, hey, keep an eye on her area over there. Mercer. If she wants to, she could be a great coach at this, and she'll make an impact there. And that was some of the feedback I even got during the season at Mercer last season, that you were making an impact and helping them help Coach Fico and turning that team. And of course, turns out you would end up winning the conference tournament in a strong SoCon. But what was their reaction when you told them you're getting to coaching?
they were happy for me. I mean, they're always so supportive, and I feel so lucky to have the relationships I have with them. Just kind of being in coach's hip pocket these past 8 months with everything going on. So I don't like to, worry her about all the things, but of course she, let me know how proud of me she was and how excited. And if I ever need anything at all, their doors are always open. T Will and T Cam, I have the best relationships with them and their families. I like could not be more complimentary of the coaches they are, but I just feel so lucky to, the people they are. And so they were very proud, happy, all the things. I know that their door is always open for me as a young coach, which is super important because I'm someone, I don't think there's just one way to do something right. So learning and being open to other things. But I think they're excited. We'll hopefully see them down the line too.
Yeah, it's it's a state. There's very a lot of easy places to bust in the state.
Yeah,
Right, to play good quality games. How
a
much have
lot.
you? Right. How much have you? I don't know if you've noticed since you've started getting coaching. How much have you've picked up? Maybe like, oh, okay, I got this from Coach Alameda, or maybe, hey, I got this from Travis. How much of them? How much of their DNA stuff is in you now?
All of it. I mean, I like to think I, created my own identity as a player there. I think, give you so many tools to create the player you want to be. That's their biggest thing is they don't teach one way. So I think by even being coached by people like Lindsay in the summer league, like taking things from Lindsay's game that I appreciated and taking it into my career, now taking things from her coaching philosophies and T Will, T Cam coach it. It's really funny. I feel like I take even Rafter, like little things from each of them. I would say coach's ability to create an environment and a culture where young women thrive is second to none. So trying to take that, T Will's softball knowledge, I think I've said this so many times to people, but there is not, in my opinion, in my career, there's not someone that knows the game better than T Will. There's not someone that can anticipate the game better than T Will. And then T Cam's ability to just coach people and like make them feel like he understands them. So then the coaching can come so easily. And Rafter's, ability to be mechanical and teach hitting and, understand the numbers of the game, all of them, they just bring such different things. And I think that's what makes them so great as a staff. But I think little things that I just really appreciated, I try to implement into my coaching. But I think also being at the professional level now, there's like things that I get to know from other schools and other girls that I try to take with me as well and how they were taught. And I'm like, oh, okay, we might not have done that at Florida State, but once again, there's other people that win just as much, that have just as good teams. So I'm gonna not write that off because that could really work for one of my girls down the road too. So that's the mindset I try to take and kind of how I like to take little pieces and kind of be a sponge from other people because I'm so lucky to be around the game at such a high level still.
Very good. This summer, it kind of, I guess it turned out it was meant to be. You come back to Florida because now you're
Yeah.
back in the state as as an assistant FGCU. You also, as you mentioned, you came back as a, with the Orlando Monarchs. You played last year in Texas. They moved the
Hmm.
franchise to Orlando. You got to play home games at the UCF softball complex. How would you describe this season playing back in Florida, in the state of Florida, and Central Florida area?
It was awesome. It started rough, but after I got through that, it was awesome. I mean, Alex, I think, does it the right way. Alex Powers, our GM. I always tell people, I know there's all the things about the different leagues and what's right and this, that, and the other, and how to grow the game the right way. But no matter what, at the end of the day, I think surrounding yourself with people who care about the right things. And Alex is definitely one of those people. And so when she came to me, it wasn't a really hard decision. And the people she kind of surrounded us with on the team. I mean, great athletes, great people, great programs. I adored the team this year and the girls and just the environment and being able to be coached by Megan Wiggins, who's done it for as long as she has done it. Also a really cool experience and just kind of being able to see how she might approach the game differently, having done it for as long as she has. It's obviously doing something right. So, just kind of really taking it all in and being back in Florida. I got to see my family a lot. Got to come down here a few times to Fort Myers when I needed to. So it was really an ideal situation for me.
Do you see yourself continuing this balancing the coaching and playing part? Have has that been hard? What's that been like balancing those two?
Yeah, I mean it's definitely hard. I think every, professional softball player can say the balance is tough because it's not a whole year, it's just the summer and maybe a little bit longer for some of the girls in AU right now. And obviously you have to go overseas if you want it to be longer. And I know that's not for me, the overseas. I like to be here, be close to my family, just be around the people I love is a big thing for me. But it is hard. I mean, I would say, in my opinion, which I haven't done it otherwise, but coaching makes it a little bit easier because you kind of keep your mind sharp and then you have the resources around you. But it also is a little bit difficult because the coaching schedule, obviously, near the end of the year, when you're leading up to the summer, when you're going to play, is when you're the busiest. So it is difficult. It all has its ups and downs. But like anything, manage your time, keep your priorities straight. And I think I felt this was my first year playing without having obviously played a college season and then just going right into the summer. So it was definitely more difficult. But like once you kind of get into those first few games after that, like your timing, knocking the rust off, getting a little bit of confidence back, it kind of comes back to you.
I've had a lot of players on the show that coach and play. They said that actually them still being active and playing helps them be a better coach
Hmm.
because they're doing all the fundamentals. They're doing everything they're telling their players to do. They have to do it themselves. So it kind of reminds them of the mechanics. It's not like they're trying to remember, well, when I did this 5 years ago or eight. No,
Yeah.
you're doing it right now, as an
Yeah,
example.
exactly. I agree with that a lot. Definitely a big part of it.
Now, your season started in the Bahamas, and a lot of your
Hmm.
players said that they enjoyed that. You were one of the few that did not, right? You had an
Yeah.
injury
Yeah.
during that time period.
Yep, broken nose. I had a broken nose, so I went to the Bahamas. It happened the day before I went to the Bahamas, so I wasn't feeling my best, but not a trip I was gonna not go on. But it was a super cool experience. They did it the right way. They treated us great. The field was amazing. The crowds were great. Obviously, all the things. It was super cool to open up there. And a really cool environment, I think, for professional softball for, Brandon's two teams to go over there and just kind of get to experience that.
So I remember that because I remember I was getting ready to broadcast the games when you were playing at UCF, and I saw your name on the roster, and I was like, "Oh, excited!" But then I didn't see you for a while, and
Mhm.
then when I did,
Yep.
I saw you with a mask. I'm like, "What happened?" And I guess, well, you got hurt in practice. Is that what happened?
Yep. Yeah, I decided too late on a pitch and swung and The ball went right to my face. It's not my proudest moment as a coach or a player, but stuff happens and I fractured my nose. So had to be out for a little while and then I put a face mask on my helmet and had to wear a nose guard. But, everything happens for a reason.
How long did it take you to get used to it? Because then you obviously play. Then you ended up having a great summer. Was
Mhm.
did it take you a while, or was it once you got in there you were like locked in?
The first game, I remember we were playing the smoke and Autumn Pease loves to come inside up and in. She wasn't do it like that's just what she does. And she threw me one and I kind of turned away and that I was a little scared, but after that I felt like pretty fine.
You mentioned, I mean, everything happens for a reason. Now that story, I have a feeling you're gonna tell your players of why
Yeah.
not don't do this because I have from
Yeah,
experience, right?
exactly. Exactly.
Have you had time to reflect on your FSU career?
I have.
What comes to your mind when you reflect on it?
Um, just so grateful and thankful and like I couldn't love the place anymore.
Do you think about like what you accomplished? I mean, I think what you played in the World Series, you played for the National Championship Series twice, got within one game of the national title against a dynasty. Was the only thing that was in your way, which I know is frustrating, but yet that's a heck of a run that you had there. Not many athletes have had the success that you've had, not only from a team standpoint, but also the success you had from an individual there. I mean, that's a pretty historic run that future FSU teams will be compared to.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean it was so special my time there. I like normally start off by saying like I love Florida State. Like it's not just the softball program. I think getting to play with Seminoles across my chest, with Florida State across my chest, just I get goosebumps thinking about it. Like I'm just so thankful and I think I am so thankful for yes, the softball program, yes, the coaches, all my teammates, but the athletic department as a whole, the school as a whole, like the people I met, the teachers I had, the people, Cindy Hartman, yeah, everyone. Like there's so many people I could name in the athletic department that made my 5 years what they were. And I always tell people, you just named all the things, the amazing things I got to experience in my career. And Florida State was the best decision of my life. Take out softball. So you add softball to it and it was just I couldn't have imagined anything better. It was very special and yeah, obviously the accolades but that's really not what you remember. I think, the most common question is like, what was your favorite moment? And I always tell people like my favorite moments were other people's moments. Like they were never my moments. And that I think is literally what Florida State softball is. Like that's the best description of why people love it so much. So yeah, definitely amazing. Like I said, all the great things.
See, you got this podcast thing down. You could do a podcast, right? That was an easy. That was a question I was going to ask. I'm just going to cross that off since you crossed it there. What's it like playing in Oklahoma City, and what's it like playing for that national championship, knowing that's in the balance?
It was amazing. I mean, to look back on it, like you're in it. And I remember having a conversation with T Cam, the first one we played in, we had a rough year. We were not great in the sense of like numbers wise. I think the stat was like no one going into the World Series with over a 300 batting average on our offense, which was crazy. But hey, tip your cap to our pitching and our defense. When you look back on it, especially as a coach. And that one, it was just such a whirlwind. We win the regional, we have to go to LSU, this crazy environment, these so many great moments in that. And you win it in two, and the first team to punch their ticket. And then we're in the World Series, and it looks like we're going to be two in barbecue. And Danny Morgan hits a home run, and you're like, oh my God. And then all of a sudden, you're a few outs away from a national championship. And I remember saying to T Cam, I was just like, how great that we're just here. And he's like, yeah, but like we got to do it, like it's not easy. It felt easy, not easy, but like as a freshman, it was just like, okay, it kept happening. All the things kept falling our way and it was going this way, that way, who cared about the personal stats? We were winning when it mattered. And he's like, and then I think, when we made it there my junior year, we were on a mission that year for sure after how 2022 ended and I understood a little bit more just the depths of how hard it is to get there. And you don't understand it as a freshman. You really don't. You don't understand until you're there. So I think, as a someone leaving, I just wanted to get, those at the end, just get teams there, get our senior year team there, just so those young ones, because it was such a amazing class of talent, just so they could experience it and know, so hopefully next time they get there and, they're gonna do amazing things. They already did amazing things, but it's just kind of how it evolves at Florida State is you really just want to do it for the people that were there before you and then now the people coming up after you.
In a lot of ways, your FSU career kind of has now set you up for your coaching because you went through everything as a player, right? The high,
I did.
you mentioned that 2021 season where your offense just didn't click for, and I had Coach Wilson on a few months back and we talked about that, trying to just find different ways to scratch out wins because
Runs.
things just,
Yeah.
right? Because nothing was working for whatever reason. Just the sport humbles you that way.
Yeah.
But yet you were able to find a way and get those timely hits once you got to that postseason and make that run to the World Series. You mentioned you had that incredible season as a team. I think you were the number 2 national seed in
Yep.
22, but then get upset in the regionals at home, which stunned people. But then that motivated you in 23 to be even better and get back to the World Series and get back to that national championship series. And then 2024, you dealt with a lot of injuries. I
Yeah.
remember I was covered your regional there. It was kind of like who's going to throw pitching wise. You had some injuries pitching
Yeah.
wise, right? And yet you found a way to get yourself into a super regional, even with a lot of the adversity there. Do you now feel, looking back, like as a coach, I can't imagine there's going to be a situation that's going to pop up that you haven't experienced already as a player?
Yeah. No, for sure. I mean, I think that was the biggest thing, I always looked back on it and I would say 2022 team was probably like by far the best, most talented team that I had ever been on and ever probably would have been on. But there are just other things that go into winning, like things got to fall your way. You got to have luck on your side. I think I told Lindsay this past year, we were kind of going through it. There was a point where in the SoCon we were last and it was just taking some hard conversations and it felt like we were just having hard conversation after hard conversation. And I'm like, I swear, like the hardest years make for the best postseasons because that's when you play your hardest softball. And if they're not prepared for that, if everything is just smooth sailing, like when adversity hits, oh, just brace yourself. That's kind of how I felt about 2022. We were so good and everything was going our way. And then, adversity hit and Coach had just in 2023, no matter what, she was like, no matter what comes our way, like we're going to be ready for it. And she put us through the gauntlet and the adversity, shared adversity, I would say is one of the bigger things I take as a coach. Like the more shared adversity we can feel on that field, the way better it's going to feel during the game and the way more in sync you guys are going to feel during the game. So I think that was the biggest thing I took away from every team, just the ability for things to go your way, the ability to be on the best team, the ability to be just on a mission and not let anything stop you. And then, the ability to kind of just lean back on each other no matter what, no matter how your season ends is kind of what describes my 4 years. And I feel lucky, to have gone through it all and now be able to share my experiences that hopefully help, some of our teams and some of my girls down the road.
Did you play with a chip on your shoulder? What was your style of play? And I only ask that because I felt covering your teams that I felt like you were underappreciated from the outside. Obviously, inside they appreciated you, but I didn't feel like you got your just due compared to some of your other teammates like Kat Sandercock got a lot of coverage, Sydney Sherrill, and rightfully so. Others, but
Yeah.
I felt like you got. I mean, you look at your resume; it's as good as it gets there. Did you feel like you weren't getting that respect, Chip, or did you not even notice that? What was your mindset as a player, and still is, I would assume, carrying it over to the pro game?
Yeah. I mean, I think, there's always sometimes that where you're like, why didn't I get preseason? I've been all ACC, all this, all that. Like, why didn't I get that? But at the end of the day, it's not something you can control. I definitely prided myself on being a smart player. I always told people like I was never the best softball player. I
Yeah.
wasn't, a Cat Sandercock. I couldn't pitch a ball like Cat. I couldn't hit a ball like Sydney. I couldn't, I didn't have the natural talent that like Janai Kerr had. It's just I prided myself on learning and being coachable and playing the game. I think Coach and I had this relationship after probably my freshman year where we could just lock eyes and we knew what we were thinking on defense, especially. And my ability to kind of just read the game is something I took pride in. I think that gets overlooked sometimes because it's not flashy. I'm not going to make a diving play because hopefully I take pride in being in the right spot so I don't have to make a diving play. I'm reading swings, I'm reading pitches. I know where they're going to hit it if they do hit it. So that I think turns out not being flashy, but I don't think that bothered me too much. Because in the end, normally it all worked out. Like you said, the all conference, all region 1 year. Obviously, everyone wishes to be all American, but if that's the one thing that I didn't get to experience, like how lucky am I for my career? So, yeah, I mean, I think taking it into my coaching career, it's just there's always going to be, flashy people, some people that the camera just draws to them and they make flashy plays and they do this and that. And then everyone has a different style of play. So I wouldn't think I thought too much of it. I mean, I think I've got that comment a lot sometimes, but nothing. I think the inner world of softball knows the difference, and that's what I care about. Like my coaches, they knew, and being on a good teammate and being a leader I was, knowing my teammates knew that was the most important thing to me at the end of the day.
Well, I'll say it. To me, you're an All-American. I don't know what's going. I mean, I'm not. I have issues with some of the voting that goes on and some of that All-American stuff. But to me,
We're in
like,
a tough region. Good, lot of good teams in this
look,
region.
you're very, very. I appreciate. You're very classy. You're taking the high road. Me and Travis have talked about this, but in the past, like, what's going on here? Because every time I saw you, always you. Because I felt like you always perform. The bigger the game, I felt like you played your best. I'm not saying that you didn't play your best in other games, but like it seemed you rose to the occasion when the moment needed it to.
Yeah, I tried. I mean, I think I am, obviously trying to take it into my FGCU coaching career, but I do think Florida State softball normally plays their best softball at the end of the year because it becomes less about you and more about the team and it's hard situations and you're in hard situations. And if the only thing you're thinking about is like, how can I be my best self for this team? Like, what does my team need from me right now? um the performing goes out the door. Like you're just trying to hit a ground ball, you're trying to get on top of a rise ball, and when you think like that, instead of thinking what can I do, how can I win this game, how can I be the star, like it ends up paying you back. The softball gods know, we always said that. The softball gods know when you're being a good teammate, it ends up coming back to you, you'll get the moment, all the things. So I think that is why I think you see Florida State kind of step up in the big moments. And some players, I think there's so many players I think of as like clutch when I think of Florida State softball that came up in really, really big moments throughout the years. And I truly believe that is why. And, that starts from the top, in my opinion. So just trying to take that into not just my teams, but life itself, it pays to care about the people around you and be selfless.
Well, I hopefully one day you get inducted into the FSU Athletics Hall of Fame. Now, there's others that need to go first, like an Alex
Yeah.
Powers has to go first. So,
Yeah.
but you can wait. You can wait a little bit. You're willing to.
Yeah.
You got time. How did you end up going to FSU? What was it that you? How did you end up to say, hey, this is going to be my home?
Yeah, funny story. So both my parents actually went to law school at Florida State,
Cool.
and I was, growing up getting recruited. That was before the rule change. Thank God for the rule change. But that was before the rule change. So it was, seventh, eighth, ninth grade was my recruiting process. I was a baby, 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 and, didn't even know. Like the meetings, my dad would have to tell me what they meant, what they said, all the things. And I was just like, everyone was like, when you'll step on campus and you'll know. And I was like, well, I've been on campus. Like I grew up a Florida State fan, all the things, like how will I know? And, I went on a few other visits, a lot of Southeast visits, and I was pretty ready to commit somewhere else to play. And my dad was like, Florida State was a little bit late to the party. And he was like, just go on this one more visit. You never know. It's obviously been tough. And they were great. Like they weren't like, oh, we need you to go to Florida State. We want you to go to Florida State. They were like, we'll support you wherever you want to go. And I was like, okay. And I went on this last visit and I remember, they had some other girls there and it was Callie Harrod, Carson Gordon, Jesse, Alex, all those girls sitting talking about how much the coaches cared about you outside of being a softball player. And I always told my parents, like, I want to be ready for the real world when I leave college. Like, I never thought softball was forever, which is funny because now it might be, but I want to be, a strong woman that's confident in what I do and what I know and ready to take on whatever is meant for me after softball. And, hearing them have those conversations, I was like, okay, this is where I'm meant to be. And I just got that feeling that weekend and ended up committing there a little bit later. And it's funny because my brother ended up going there, getting his undergrad there, and now my sister plays beach volleyball there. So
Oh,
kind of a whole family affair, but that's how I ended up there.
that's pretty good. You say you were involved with the baseball program.
Hmm.
How did that come about? How do you fit that in
Um,
as a softball person?
Yeah, they were great. So in our sports management program, I did my master's there because I had my COVID year. So our sports management program is great. And through the head of that, he kind of put me in contact with Chip Baker. And he was at the time the director of operations. He was there all through like 11's tenor and Mike Martin Jr. He was there, DOps, and his daughter actually played softball. So just a little connections. Coach always says it's always about who you know. And got in contact with them and got in contact with who was their current DOP, Sean Guy, and was able to be with him for the first half of the year, doing just like DOP stuff, all the things. And then Randy Burdett, the second half of the year, he's their new director of player development, and he used to work at Nike, Fanatics, all the things, and definitely a role model for me. Kind of took me under his wing of, game day operations, meeting boosters. And obviously it was not easy for me, but a lot of the boosters are softball fans and baseball fans, and a lot of the athletic department and Mr. Alford and Miss Alford. So just being around all of them, that was kind of how it came about. And they were like, if it was baseball, played their midweeks, Tuesdays instead of Wednesdays. So I was able to go to those games. And then my class was like my internship. So I'd be able to be in the office for a few hours in the morning, and all of the coaches, Ty, Coach Micah, Coach Jarrett, all of them, they were great. So just kind of being around and help whatever they needed and whenever they needed it.
That's pretty good. What year was this? Their baseball season? What was it? 23 or what was it?
2020. So the year they went to the World Series.
Oh, so when Link just 2 years ago.
Yeah, 2 years ago. My final year at Florida State was when I got to do that because it was part of my master's program.
Wow. Did you get to go to
Yeah.
Omaha?
No, no, I didn't get to go to Omaha,
Okay, I
but
was
I
wondering if you
definitely
got.
was supporting from afar.
What's that like? So that's your unique perspective that you have because you've been involved with both the softball and the baseball programs. For those that may not be aware, I mean, I've been there where Joanne Graff Field is literally next to Dick
Hmm.
Hauser. I've
Hmm.
joked with Alex Powers, who you've referenced here many a time. So I broadcast many a games. I said, she made me cry 2015 because she hit the walk off in a regional
Yeah.
against UCF. And I literally walked out of Joanne Grant Field and walked straight to Dick Hauser to catch a few innings of the baseball game, which is
Yeah.
kind of cool. Like,
It's awesome.
it's
It's awesome.
amazing. And Dick Hauser, to me, I mean, it's one of the best baseball facilities in the country. Uh,
Yeah.
that is unique, and they love their baseball. Like, I mean, it's
They do.
and
They're
and
tried and
and
true.
very true. And now I've been very glad. I've talked to Coach Alameda about this. That has now even bleed into the softball now,
Hmm.
where it's softball and baseball next door, and it's all incredible. That's pretty awesome that you've been able to be a part of both of those programs.
Yeah. It was really cool. I think Coach Jarrett does it the right way. That was kind of what made me for the longest time wanting to get into baseball, and then being around Coach Jarrett and his staff. I was like, okay, yeah, this is something I want to pursue. And I think obviously life's just about trying things and seeing if you like it or not. And I think what working in professional baseball made me realize is I think it's the college environment that I like so much, whether it be softball, baseball, whatever it is. So met amazing people through that, got to be, around their office, see kind of how they do things. And Coach Jarrett is second to none, obviously, with what he's done there in such a short time and just the people he's surrounded himself with. So that was pretty special. And then kind of seeing obviously on the other side of it, experiencing a little bit of the coaching before I was part of the coaching, but also how much goes into it. So it was awesome. I felt very lucky. They didn't normally take interns. It's just tough. They have um, just different things they go along with. So it always pays to know people and have really good relationships, which is something coach had taught me. So definitely will be taking that down the road.
I think that baseball team had like 11 players drafted in the MLB draft.
Yeah, they had a lot that year. They had even more this year. They had like the
Yeah,
most they've ever had, and they actually had a few like undrafted signees this year too. So it was cool. 'Cause a lot of my friends too. So a few kids from Sarasota that I grew up with were playing at the time. So got to support with them or got to support them. And then just obviously, all of my peers in the athletic department. I think that, like you talked about, literally walking outside of the softball stadium, you can walk in the baseball stadium and then you walk another 20 steps and you're in the football stadium. And then another 20 steps the other way is the soccer stadium. So just that environment that they've cultivated from an athletics department, I think I could have probably worked for any of the teams and felt super lucky to be around them and just be around, my peers. It was super cool.
you interned with the Orioles. What led you to doing that, and
Mhm.
what was that experience like?
Um, like I said, just I thought, player development kind of got to be in part of the game, but also I like, the mental game. I like the relationships and wanting the best for these players, not just caring about them as their sport, but as people and how do we get them to perform the best on the field. I'm a firm believer that them knowing you care about them and being able to take care of their life outside of the field is what works. And just something I kind of wanted to pursue at the time. And we had a great friend close to Kocha and T Cam, and he knew someone in the Orioles organization and kind of put a feeler out there, sent in my resume and sent it to the head of player development at the Orioles. And they kind of let me come intern with them, which worked out great because it's in Sarasota, which is where my parents are from. So I got to experience that and kind of be around that clubhouse, which they had their summer season was ending. They had different hitting camps, fielding camps, different rovers, pitching coaches, all the Major League Baseball things going on. So just being around that and met the most amazing people. Like they were great to me, great environment, great relationships. I just think the difference between professional sports and college sports is, it's just a business. And I think I found out the relationship side of college sports is what I like in my career right now. So just deciding to pursue that for now and maybe see if I can roll back around if that's what I still want to do one day.
Well, I think the Orioles miss you right now. They have not had they have not had the seasons that like they did when you were there around there. But that's that's their deal there. But that's pretty amazing though, the baseball side. I mean, that's did you get to meet any MLB players while you were interning there? Was it just one of the minor leaguers at that point? What was that process like?
It was more minor leaguers at the time. They had some guys rehabbing and obviously, they were in the playoffs. So when you're in the playoffs, you have a taxi squad. So they had some of those guys there. But it was also around the time of all the hurricanes that hit us
Sure.
pretty hard in South Florida. So guys were going in and out, the guys having to get them home, having to get them back, all the things. So the logistics of that. But yeah, there was a few guys in and out, but it was mostly minor leaguers.
So now you're in the state, you're coaching in the state, and this state that has become just a heavyweight in softball. We mentioned obviously Florida. I mean, we've talked about Florida State. That speaks for itself.
Mhm.
Florida Gators, it speaks for itself. UCF has been on the rise there in
Mhm.
the program as well. South Florida's coming off an American Conference Championship. FAU up at Boca, which is having a great. Just describe this state for softball and why it's so successful. Where just a couple of years ago we had three teams in the state in the national top 16 seeds.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's always been a lot of talent in Florida, and I think softball getting bigger is the ability to kind of spread that talent a little bit. And I just, I think the state's getting some good coaches and softball's growing, the game's growing. It's different than it used to be. And I think also being surrounded by great competition is a big deal. So your ability to compete with each other at a very high level, whether it be a midweek or a preseason tournament or whatever it is, it's always going to be a tough game. I mean, North Florida, they're really great. Like there are so many UNF, FAU, UCF, USF, us, like all of the things. There's so much good talent in this general vicinity. So I think that's a big part of it, when you don't have to travel to play that top level is a big deal, especially to these schools that might have a little bit less money and kind of grow your RPI and get your girls the experience and get them in those tough situations because then when it comes time to perform, the ability to do that, is a little bit better. So I think, just going back to my travel ball days, like I played for Jason Nowling on Santa Fe Inferno, and the program was a lot smaller than it is now. So whatever, they're doing on the travel ball side, I haven't been as involved in that. I don't know, but I know just people like that who are continuing to grow the game and grow the travel ball world at that level is a huge deal too. So, I think it's really great and it's really exciting to see this. I think come regionals makes it very exciting. You're like, who's going to get sent to a big SEC school? Who's going to get sent to the big ACC school? Who's going to get sent far away? It's interesting, but it's really good for the game.
It is, and you as a staff, I talked to Coach Fico about this when she appeared on the podcast about a month or two ago. I mean, at Mercer, you were the state champs.
Hmm.
You beat Georgia, you beat Georgia Tech, you name it, they beat them, and then you beat Georgia Tech again, just to put an exclamation point in the regionals in games. So in a lot of ways, you know what it's like here at FGCU, which has been to the regionals before. They were just there a couple of years ago, winning the ASUN championship, and I would imagine that's
Hmm.
part of the attractiveness there is the location, the
Hmm.
where you're able to get talent, and that hey, you could play with the big quote unquote big programs in the state. You've done it, you've shown
Yeah,
it.
for sure. I think, a lot of the schools in Florida are in really great spots and we have really great pretty fields, really pretty campuses. So that's a big pull and just the ability to compete at a high level is second to none. So it's cool.
What was the message you gave the players when you came in, and what is that going to be like now the next few months as you get to know the players and they get to know you?
Yeah, our girls aren't on campus yet, so they'll be starting to trickle in this week. We'll kind of take our time to get to know them. We want to integrate them, obviously, have some transfers, some returners, some freshmen, just building relationships, I think is what we're gonna really touch on the first few weeks. And I think for me, obviously, never done this before where it's been like the very beginning of the season and get to experience a whole fall, but just letting them know that at the end of the day, want them to be successful in life, want them to be confident young women. And I think that a few of those things make the best softball players. And we're going to get good at softball and we're going to take pride in what we do. But making sure that they're young, confident, educated women when they leave this place is our first priority. And then, winning a lot of softball games and having fun doing it.
Well, it's going to be fun to see you kind of do your thing there, and like I said, I'm sure we'll cross paths
Yeah.
frequently in the state there. But hey, listen, thanks for taking the time. Like I said, it was cool to kind of watch you play this summer up close in person, and look forward to crossing with you. Welcome back to the state of Florida, and thanks for taking the time from your busy schedule to come on and talk to us here on in the circle on D1 softball.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me. Loved listening to you commentate the games this summer. You did a great job. So